My grandma left me her $450,000 house, but Dad demanded I sell it for my sister's rehab and said I was dead to him when I refused. So I did this with the house, and now they came begging, throwaway, for obvious reasons. So I, female, 26, inherited my grandmother's house when she passed away 2 months ago, and now my entire family thinks I'm a selfish monster because I won't sell it to pay for my sister's rehab. I honestly don't know if I'm being reasonable or if I'm actually as heartless as they're saying. Some background, I guess. My grandma Elaine raised me and my sister Kelsey, female, 28, after our parents got divorced when I was like 15. Well, not really raised us, but you know what I mean. She was always there for us. Anyway, when I graduated college 3 years ago with my marketing degree and like $40 in student loans because I was being stupid about money, I couldn't afford my own place right away, so I was staying with friends and stuff. Then Elaine had her hip surgery and needed help with everything. Medications, groceries, getting to doctor's appointments, just basic stuff. My dad, Charles, male, 55, was dealing with Kelsey being in rehab again, so I basically moved in to help out. I mean, I didn't officially move in, but I was sleeping there like 4 to 5 nights a week, doing her laundry, making sure she ate properly. Kelsey was supposedly getting her life together during this time, but honestly, she was in and out of different treatment programs constantly. She'd visit Elaine maybe once every few weeks, and usually ended up asking for money for something. I always thought it was weird how Elaine seemed relieved when Kelsey's visits were short, but I figured she just got tired easily, since she was recovering from surgery and everything. I loved taking care of Elaine, though, honestly. She was sharp as a tack until the very end, and we'd watch old movies together, and she'd tell me stories about when she was younger. She'd always say things like, "You're such a good girl, Isabel," and "I don't know what I'd do without you." I guess I should have realized she was planning something, but I really didn't expect this. When she died, heart attack in her sleep, very peaceful, thank God, the lawyer read the will, and apparently she left me the house. The whole house. Not split between me and Kelsey, just me. The house is worth like $450,000, which is crazy because I make $38K a year at my job and could never afford anything like that. I was honestly shocked because the original will from years ago split everything between me and Kelsey. Turns out Elaine changed it about 6 months before she died. She never said anything to me about it. At first, my dad seemed okay with it. He helped me with some of the paperwork and estate stuff, said Elaine obviously knew what she was doing, and I deserved it for taking such good care of her. I started thinking about maybe renting out rooms to help with the property taxes and utilities. But then, like 2 weeks after the funeral, Dad shows up at my apartment. He seemed really agitated and was pacing around asking if we could discuss the situation. I made him coffee and tried to keep things calm, but he immediately starts talking about selling the house. Apparently, Kelsey is in crisis again and needs to go to this super exclusive rehab place in California that costs $80,000 for 3 months. Dad says it's her last chance, and they've already spent over $200,000 on different programs and therapy over the past 5 years. I had no idea it was that much money, honestly. I asked why she couldn't try somewhere local first, since our insurance would probably cover it, and also pointed out that she's left like every other expensive place early anyway. That's when Dad completely lost it. He started yelling about how I don't understand addiction, and I'm being selfish and heartless. Said I'm basically choosing money over my sister's life. I tried to explain that Elaine specifically left the house to me, and maybe there was a reason for that, but he just got angrier. The whole confrontation was honestly scary. He knocked over his coffee mug when he stood up, and it shattered on my kitchen floor. Then he said if I won't help save Kelsey, then I'm dead to him as a daughter, and stormed out. He slammed my door so hard the windows rattled, and my neighbor came out to check if everything was okay. I called my mom, Beth. She divorced Dad like 6 years ago, to ask what she thought, but she just said everyone handles grief differently and wouldn't really take sides, which is probably smart, but also not helpful at all. Since then, it's been a nightmare. My aunt called me crying, saying Kelsey might die without proper treatment, and how could I be so cruel? My cousin has been texting me that I'm being incredibly selfish during a family emergency. Even some of Elaine's old friends from her church have been giving me weird looks when I see them at the grocery store. The worst part was when Kelsey called me herself last week. She was sobbing and saying she really wants to get better this time, but can't do it without my help. She sounded genuinely desperate and mentioned being afraid of some people she owes money to, which is new information and honestly kind of scary. I almost gave in at that point because she seemed so broken. But then I remembered something Elaine said once about how Kelsey needs to learn she can't charm her way out of everything. I never really understood what she meant, but now I'm wondering if Elaine saw something I didn't. It's been radio silence from Dad for the past 3 weeks now. He won't answer my calls or texts. Kelsey keeps alternating between angry messages, calling me a selfish bitch, and crying voicemails begging me to reconsider. I feel guilty, but also suspicious. Like, why is this particular expensive place so important when she's failed to finish several other programs? And why didn't anyone tell me the family had already spent $200 on her treatment? That's like a crazy amount of money. I keep going back and forth on whether I'm doing the right thing. Maybe I am being selfish. Maybe Kelsey really will die if she doesn't get help, and it'll be my fault. But also, maybe Elaine knew what she was doing when she left me the house instead of splitting it. I don't know anymore. The family silence is killing me, but I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this story than I'm being told. Since people are probably wondering, no, I haven't contacted a lawyer about the family pressure yet, but I'm starting to think I should. The will was definitely legal and properly executed. Elaine used the same lawyer for like 30 years, but Dad has made some comments about getting it overturned that worry me. I never thought my own family would threaten legal action against me, but here we are, I guess. To answer what some people might ask, yes, I did consider just giving them like half the money from selling it. But honestly, the more I think about it, the more I realize that won't solve anything. If Kelsey leaves this program early, like all the others, then what? Do I pay for the next one too? And the one after that? Elaine worked her whole life to pay off this house, and I can't just throw that away because my family is freaking out again. Now for the first update. Sorry for the delay updating. Things have been absolutely chaotic, and honestly, I needed time to process everything that's happened. So remember how I said I felt like there was more to the story than I was being told? Well, I was right, and I honestly wish I wasn't, because what I found out is so much worse than I thought. Okay, so after like 3 weeks of basically radio silence from Dad, I couldn't take it anymore. The guilt was really getting to me, and I kept second-guessing myself. Like maybe I really was being selfish and heartless, like everyone said. I decided to do some research. I mean, if I was going to destroy my family over this, I should at least make sure I wasn't completely wrong, right? First, I tried calling some of Kelsey's previous treatment places. I know this sounds sneaky, but I pretended I was calling about transferring medical records or something. I'm not proud of this, but whatever. And oh my God. The first place I called, this fancy residential place in Arizona that supposedly cost like $45 for 90 days, the lady was super confused when I mentioned Kelsey completing the program. She told me that my sister had checked herself out after only 18 days. 18 days. But Dad paid the full amount up front, so I called the next place. Same thing. Kelsey lasted maybe 3 weeks out of a 60-day program, but Dad had already paid everything. I'm sitting there with this sick feeling in my stomach because I'm starting to realize what this means. Like these places probably give refunds when people leave early, right? Or at least partial refunds. But Dad thought she completed everything, which means I called Mom, Beth, because I was honestly freaking out at this point. I was like shaking while I dialed because I didn't want to believe what I was thinking. And Mom just went quiet for a long time when I told her what I found. Then she said she'd been wondering when someone would figure that out. What? Apparently Mom has suspected for years that Kelsey was getting money back from these places and not telling Dad. She said her and Dad used to fight about it constantly before their divorce because Kelsey would come home from failed programs with new designer purses and stuff. But Dad would get furious anytime Mom questioned anything about Kelsey's treatment. Mom said Dad always shut down any conversation by saying, "You can't put a price on your child's life," which I get that, but also you can't just ignore obvious red flags. But here's where it gets really bad. Mom told me the real reason Kelsey needs money right now. It's not just about addiction relapse, though that's obviously part of it. Apparently, Kelsey got mixed up with her ex-boyfriend Jake's gambling debts, and now she owes money to some really scary people. Like, actual scary people. not just credit card companies. What happened was Jake owed money to these guys, and Kelsey helped him pay some of it off using money she'd obtained from previous rehab situations. She thought they were going to get married and start fresh together, which honestly sounds exactly like something Kelsey would think. But then Jake left her for someone else a few months ago, just completely abandoned her. And now these people are pressuring Kelsey directly for the rest of the money. I felt like I was going to throw up when Mom explained this, because it means Dad knew about the debts, but was telling me it was purely about addiction treatment to make me feel guilty. He was basically lying to manipulate me into selling Elaine's house. I was so angry, I couldn't even think straight. Like, I've been feeling guilty for weeks, thinking maybe my sister was going to die without treatment, and really it's about Jake's gambling debts. Are you kidding me? And the worst part is, I know Elaine would be so upset if she knew the house money was going toward gambling debts. She always said gambling was just throwing good money away and wouldn't even buy lottery tickets. I decided right then that I was gonna make a statement. Like, if they want to manipulate me and make me feel guilty, then fine. But I'm gonna do something that actually helps people, instead of just enabling more lies. I remembered how Elaine used to volunteer at the community center and was always talking about helping people who really wanted to change their lives. She'd get so frustrated with people who just wanted handouts versus people who were willing to work for it. So I called this addiction counselor, Dr. Martinez, who works at the county clinic. I'd seen his name in some article about addiction treatment and how there's not enough affordable transitional housing for people finishing programs. And I explained my situation and asked if he thought converting Elaine's house into like a sober living facility would be helpful. He got so excited. Apparently, he's been trying to find affordable housing options for people who complete treatment but can't afford those crazy expensive halfway houses. The plan would be charging just enough rent to cover utilities and maintenance, maybe like $400 to $500 a month, and providing structure and support for people who are genuinely committed to recovery. Dr. Martinez said he has people on waiting lists who would be perfect for something like this. I felt better than I had in weeks. Like, finally I was doing something Elaine would actually approve of instead of just arguing with family about money. But I knew I had to tell Dad and Kelsey about my decision. I called Dad and asked for a family meeting to discuss Kelsey's situation. He sounded so hopeful on the phone, probably thinking I'd changed my mind about selling. They both showed up looking like they thought they'd already won. I sat them down in Elaine's living room and just laid everything out. All my research about the previous rehabs, the pattern of Kelsey leaving early, the money that Dad didn't know about. Kelsey immediately started freaking out. She started yelling about how I was attacking her when she was vulnerable and that this was exactly why she couldn't get better, because no one believed in her. Dad tried interrupting and saying the past didn't matter and what mattered was helping her now, but I kept going. Then I told them about Jake and the gambling debts. The look on Dad's face. I mean, he obviously knew, but seeing him realize that I knew was honestly satisfying in a petty way. Kelsey started crying and yelling about how I was judging her and didn't understand how desperate she was. She was going on about how Jake had promised they'd pay everyone back together and that she thought she was helping someone she loved. Then I told them about the sober living facility plan. Dad's expression went from confused to furious when he realized this meant no house sale. Like, his whole face changed, and Kelsey just lost it. Started screaming about how I was showing off my privilege and helping strangers instead of family. Dad threatened legal action again, something about Elaine not being mentally competent when she changed the will, which is ridiculous because her lawyer was super careful about documenting everything. I told them calmly that Kelsey could apply for the program like everyone else if she was serious about recovery, but she'd have to prove her commitment and follow all the same rules. Both of them stormed out. Kelsey was shouting about how I'd ruined the family, and Dad slammed the door really hard. I sat there for like an hour afterwards, just processing. Part of me felt guilty because they looked genuinely devastated, but also I felt this huge relief because finally I understood what was really going on. It wasn't about addiction treatment. It was about cleaning up Jake's mess and enabling Kelsey to avoid consequences for her choices. Since then, it's been a nightmare. Some extended family members are starting to ask questions about Kelsey's version of events. My cousin asked why Kelsey needs exactly $80K if it's for local treatment, but others are doubling down on the family comes first thing. My aunt called me crying again yesterday, saying I was abandoning Kelsey when she needed help the most, but when I asked if she knew about the gambling debts, she got really quiet. Dr. Martinez and I are moving forward with the sober living plan anyway. We're setting up proper screening procedures and safety protocols. He says he has 3 people ready to apply as soon as we get everything approved. I keep telling myself this is about helping people who actually want help. But honestly, part of me is definitely trying to prove a point about real recovery versus just throwing money at problems. I don't know if that makes me petty or practical. Probably both. The worst part is I can't shake the feeling that if Elaine was here, she'd be proud of me for standing up to the manipulation, but also disappointed that the family is falling apart over money. I guess we'll see what happens when Dad realizes the legal threats won't work. Something tells me this isn't over. Now for the second update. Sorry for the delay. Things have been absolutely insane and honestly overwhelming. So it's been like 6 months since my last update, and wow, just wow. I don't even know where to start because so much has happened, and basically everything I thought might happen did happen, but worse. First, the good news, I guess. The sober living house is actually working, like really working in ways I never expected. We have 8 residents now, and honestly, they're amazing people. 3 of them have full-time jobs. One guy, Marcus, works at the post office and always brings donuts on Fridays. 2 finished GED programs, and one of them, Sarah, is planning to start community college next semester. And get this, Jennifer, who's been here the longest, is moving into her own apartment next month because she saved enough for first month rent and deposit. Dr. Martinez keeps telling me how much better the success rate is compared to those crazy expensive places. Like people are actually staying and working the program instead of just, I don't know, going through the motions until they can leave. We've been getting calls from social workers in other counties asking about our screening process and how we set everything up, which is honestly kind of weird because 6 months ago I had no idea what I was doing. But then, the local newspaper did this whole feature story about the house. It was supposed to be a feel-good piece about innovative addiction recovery funded by grandmother's legacy. The reporter was really nice and interviewed some of the residents who wanted to participate, and Dr. Martinez talked about how this model could work in other communities. I felt proud reading it, you know? Like finally Elaine's house was doing exactly what she would have wanted. But I also had this sick feeling because I knew my family would see it and probably lose their minds. Well, I was right. About 2 weeks after the article came out, Dad called me, and he was crying, like full-on sobbing on the phone, which honestly scared me because I'd never heard him cry before. Ever. He kept saying he was wrong and he was sorry, and could I please help him with his mortgage payments? Turns out, Dad had completely bankrupted himself trying to bail Kelsey out. He'd used up his entire retirement savings, took out a second mortgage, even borrowed against his car, all to pay off these people Kelsey owed money to. And of course, it didn't work, because obviously throwing money at Jake's gambling debts wasn't going to magically fix anything. But Dad was in complete panic mode about Kelsey's safety, so he just kept paying and paying. Now he's facing foreclosure in 60 days. 60 days. I honestly felt sick when he told me because, that's his house, where he's lived for 15 years. I was so conflicted because part of me felt vindicated, I told you so, but also genuinely worried about Dad. He mentioned having chest pains from stress, and honestly, he sounded terrible, really terrible. But the situation got so much worse. Last month, Kelsey showed up at the house one evening during dinner time. She was clearly drunk or high or both and started pounding on the front door, demanding to talk to me. All the residents were just trying to eat, and suddenly there's this woman outside screaming about family loyalty and stuff. I was mortified. I went outside to try to calm her down and keep her away from everyone, but she immediately started yelling about how I was helping strangers over family, and didn't I care that Dad might lose his house. I tried to explain, calmly, that she could apply for the program like everyone else if she was serious about recovery. But she just got more agitated. She was going on about how I destroyed the family for publicity and attention, and that I was just showing off for the newspaper. I pointed out that she chose to lie about the rehab money, but that just made her angrier. She kept getting more worked up, claiming she only took the money because she was desperate and scared. I offered to discuss her applying when she was sober, but she laughed and said I was playing God with people's lives. Then she threatened to expose me to the media as someone who abandoned family. I stayed calm and said I was prepared to explain the full situation publicly if needed. That's when she completely broke down crying and admitted she'd been stealing money from our Aunt Patricia too. I couldn't even process that at first, because Aunt Patricia was one of the people calling me heartless months ago, and apparently Kelsey had been taking money from her the whole time. Kelsey's problems were way bigger than any of us knew, but also, there were residents watching from the windows, and I needed to get her away from the house. Since then, family members who completely trashed me before are now quietly asking if their kids or relatives might benefit from the program. Aunt Patricia called me last week, really sheepishly, admitting that her research into expensive rehab places showed questionable success rates and marketing designed to basically exploit desperate families. She apologized for some of the things she said before. Even Mom finally told me that Dad is having real health problems from stress and guilt, and asked if I'd at least consider talking to him even if I couldn't give money. So I agreed to meet with Dad at this neutral coffee place to discuss potential solutions. And guys, he completely fell apart. Like full breakdown, sobbing about how his enabling hurt both me and Kelsey, and that he'd been so afraid of losing her that he never held her accountable for anything. It was honestly hard to watch because I've never seen him like that before. He kept saying he ruined everything and didn't know how to fix it. That's when I proposed something I'd been thinking about. I told him he could rent a room at the sober house if he committed to family therapy and stopped enabling Kelsey's behavior completely, like treating it as his own recovery from codependency. But I made it clear, any help comes with accountability measures. No exceptions for family. No more financial bailouts without genuine consequences. Kelsey has to go through the same evaluation and waiting list as everyone else, with no special treatment or guarantees. Dad was quiet for a long time processing this. Then he asked if I really thought it would help. And honestly, I don't know. But it felt like the first real conversation we'd had in months, where he wasn't just trying to guilt trip me. He's starting to see that maybe all his panic about saving Kelsey actually made things worse for her. It's hard to tell if he really gets it yet. Kelsey did eventually enter a local program after facing actual legal consequences for her debts and the theft from Aunt Patricia. It's not fancy, but it's legit, and she can't just leave when things get hard because there are court requirements involved. I still feel guilty sometimes about not selling the house, especially when I see how much Dad is struggling financially. But I keep reminding myself that Elaine left Emmy the house for a reason, and she would want it helping people who are genuinely committed to changing their lives. The family relationships are still super complicated, and honestly, probably always will be. Things happen really slowly instead of big breakthroughs. Kelsey has good days and bad days. Dad is learning to set boundaries while managing his stress-related health stuff. The sober house keeps helping people, but it's constant work. Some family members still think I was too harsh. Others have privately thanked me for finally holding everyone accountable. I honestly don't know what the long-term family dynamics will look like, but I know the house is serving its purpose, creating actual lasting change instead of just enabling the same patterns over and over. I guess that has to be enough for now. To answer what people will probably ask, yes, Dad did move into the house, and yes, he's doing family therapy. It's awkward sometimes, but he's actually following through. Kelsey is still in the program and doing okay as far as I know, but we don't talk much yet. And yes, some of the residents were initially weird about having my dad there, but Dr. Martinez helped explain the situation, and everyone's been really understanding. Also, for people asking about my own mental health through all this, I finally started seeing a therapist too, because honestly, this whole situation was way more than I knew how to handle alone. Would definitely recommend if you're dealing with family addiction/manipulation stuff, because it's so much more complicated than you think it's going to be. Sorry this was so long, but there was just a lot to cover.